In the shining heart of the galaxy, there was a palace so grand that entire worlds whispered its name. It was home to Lady Serana, one of the richest and most powerful alien mothers in the Orion sector. Her ships ruled trade, her voice held power in councils, and her jewels were brighter than stars. But inside the golden halls, behind doors that no outsider could cross, lived a secret that money could not hide. Her only daughter, Lyra, was born with legs that could not move. She could not stand. She could not walk, she could not run. For other alien children, running under 3 moons was a game, a joy, a song of freedom. For Lyra, every step was a dream too far. The mother loved her child more than all the gold in her vaults. But love did not silence the cruel voices outside. Other alien nobles whispered at feasts. They call her wealthy, yet her fortune cannot buy her child's health. They say she has everything, yet she cannot heal what is broken in her own house. Each word was a knife, each laugh a wound that Serana carried alone. Every healer, every doctor of the galaxy had been called. Some brought machines, some brought medicine, some brought false hope. They promised cures, they promised miracles, but every time, the result was the same. The girl's legs did not move, and the mother's heart sank deeper. Still, she never gave up. In secret she searched, she begged. She even paid spies to bring her whispers of forbidden cures. Hope was dangerous, but a mother's heart does not know fear when her child suffers. One evening, Serana stood by the high window of her palace. Watching the twin suns fall, her daughter rested behind her in a chair of silver, her small hands tracing patterns in the air. The child smiled despite her pain, and that smile was both light and torment to the mother. She would have given her crown, her fleets, even her life, just to see her daughter walk one step. But then new whispers began to spread. They spoke of a strange being from a small, unimportant world, a human, a creature of flesh and weakness, from a planet that had no place in great councils. The galaxy did not fear humans, nor did it respect them. They were called fragile, short-lived, ordinary, but this human, some said, carried knowledge that no alien had, knowledge that touched not machines or magic, but the hidden strength of body and spirit. At first, Serana laughed at the rumor. What could a fragile human offer when the greatest doctors of the galaxy had failed? Yet in the dark hours of night, when she heard her daughter's quiet breathing and saw her still legs, the thought returned. What if the whispers were true? What if the answer lay not in the hands of her people, but in the hands of a stranger from a forgotten world? Her advisors warned her not to believe it. Her rivals mocked her for even thinking about it. But inside her heart, something stirred, something between fear and hope. She had seen every science fail, every promise break. Perhaps it was time to try something no one else dared. The next morning, a secret message was sent. Across the stars, a request traveled to find the human healer. The nobles would laugh if they knew. The galaxy would sneer if they discovered, but Serana did not care. For in her daughter's smile lived a promise, and that promise was worth every risk, unknown to her. The first step of a miracle had already begun. The arrival of a human would change her house, her world, and perhaps the galaxy itself. But on that night, she stood alone in her palace, her hands trembling. Her wealth meant nothing. Her power meant little. All she wanted was to hear one sound, the sound of her daughter's footsteps echoing through the halls of her golden palace. The palace gates had opened many times for kings, warriors, and scholars, but that morning, they opened for someone no one expected. A single small ship landed on the crystal floor of the royal hangar. It was plain, without markings, without pride. Almost an insult to the shining ships of the alien nobles. From its doors stepped the stranger, a human, no tall horns, no glowing skin, no wings of light. Just 2 legs, 2 hands, and a face that seemed far too ordinary for such a place. The guards frowned, the servants whispered, and the nobles who had gathered to watch laughed openly. Is this the one? A noble sneered, his voice dripping with scorn. They bring us a weak animal and call it healer. Another chuckled. Even their world is forgotten. Lost among dust and storms, said a third. Their laughter echoed in the grand halls, but the human did not bow. Did not flinch, he walked forward calmly, his steps slow but steady, his eyes filled with quiet purpose. Lady Serana sat on her throne, her daughter Lyra beside her in the silver chair. Her heart beat fast, torn between shame and hope. She saw the human enter, plain in his clothes, carrying only a small bag slung across his shoulder. No machines, no glowing crystals, no tools of power, only that simple bag. The nobles murmured louder, mocking what they saw as weakness. But Sarana kept her silence, her eyes sharp, watching closely. The human stopped before her and bowed politely. Not with fear, but with respect. "My name is Dr. Elias," he said, his voice steady. "I have come because I was told of a child who cannot walk." The nobles burst out laughing again. Such simple words in a hall of gold sounded like a poor man begging for bread. But Sarana raised her hand and silence fell. "Yes," she said slowly, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 hidden nights of sorrow. "My daughter cannot stand, cannot walk, and none in this galaxy has healed her." Her eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. "Tell me, human, what makes you believe you can succeed where all others failed?" Dr. Elias did not smile, nor did he boast. He simply turned his gaze to the child. He stepped closer, slowly, gently, until he stood before Lyra. He knelt down to her level. His eyes meeting hers, the girl blinked, shy at first, then curious. The human's voice softened. "Do you want to walk, little one?" The hall grew silent, for all the galaxy's healers had spoken only to the mother, only to the nobles, never to the child. But this fragile human looked at the girl as if she alone mattered. Lyra's small voice trembled as she whispered, "Yes." Dr. Elias nodded, his eyes calm. "Then I will help you, but it will not be easy," he said gently. "There will be pain, there will be tears, and you will want to give up." He turned back to Sarana, his words sharp like steel. "She will walk, but it will take time, trust, and the will to fight through suffering." The nobles gasped. One shouted, "Impossible." Another cried, "Arrogance. He dares speak of pain and hope to the great Lady Sarana." But the human did not flinch. His eyes steady. He had spoken not to please, but to promise, a dangerous promise in the heart of the galaxy. Sarana's chest tightened. For years she had heard the same word, impossible. Yet here stood a simple human, not offering machines or magic, but offering struggle, effort, and faith. Her heart wavered, torn between the fear of failure and the desperate hunger for hope. She leaned forward, her voice low but filled with fire. "If you lie to me, human, if you bring harm to my daughter, your name will be erased from the stars." Dr. Elias met her gaze. Calm and unbroken, "I do not lie," he answered. "I cannot promise an easy path, but I promise I will walk it with her." Step by step, the nobles whispered in anger. Some demanded the human be thrown out. Others warned of shame and danger. But Sarana raised her hand again, silencing them. Her eyes, for the first time in many years, carried a flicker of something new, hope. She turned to her daughter, and the girl's small smile was all the answer she needed. "Then you may begin," Sarana said firmly. The human bowed his head in respect. And in that moment, the palace that had seen countless treasures, countless victories, witnessed something far greater, the quiet beginning of a miracle. Unknown to all who stood there, this single step, the arrival of a fragile human in a hall of power, would ripple through the galaxy like a storm yet to come. The palace had grown quiet after the human's bold words. The nobles left with laughter still dripping from their tongues, yet some carried unease in their eyes. Lady Sarana dismissed them all, keeping only her daughter, her guards, and the human called Dr. Elias. The great hall, once filled with mocking voices, now seemed heavy with silence. Dr. Elias placed his small bag on the marble floor. From it he pulled out objects so simple that they looked like toys compared to alien machines. Bands of cloth, strange sticks of metal, and a box that hummed with a soft rhythm. The guards exchanged doubtful glances, one muttering under his breath, "These are not tools of healing. These are scraps." But Elias ignored them, his focus locked only on the child. He knelt before Lyra again, his voice calm. "Little one, I will not promise miracles in a single day." His words were steady, neither proud nor weak. "I will promise this instead. If you fight with me, if you endure, then one day you will stand, and your legs will carry you." Lyra's wide eyes filled with both fear and wonder. Her hands gripped the sides of her silver chair. "No healer has spoken to me like that before," she whispered. "They only said I was broken." Dr. Elias shook his head gently. "You are not broken," he said. "You are only waiting to awaken the strength that already lives inside you." Lady Sarana's throat tightened. Her heart ached at the simple kindness in his tone. For years she had watched her daughter treated as a patient, an experiment, a burden. But this human saw her as a fighter. And for the first time, Sarana saw a spark in her daughter's eyes. A spark of belief. The mother stepped forward, her robes flowing like waves. "Human," she said sharply, though her voice carried less anger now. "You speak with hope, but hope alone does not heal." Her gaze narrowed, sharp as the blades of her ancestors. "Tell me how you will do what all our finest minds could not." Dr. Elias stood slowly, facing her without fear. "Your doctors looked for perfection," he explained. "They searched for instant answers, for a cure without struggle." He tapped the side of his head, then his chest. "But the body is not only flesh and bone, it is spirit, mind and will." The guards frowned. "Not understanding." The mother tilted her head. Her eyes curious, the human continued, his words clear and firm. "I will not give her new legs. I will teach her body to remember what it was meant to do." He lifted the bands of cloth, showing them, "These will hold her when her legs are weak." He lifted the sticks of metal. "These will help her rise when she falls." He touched the small humming box. "And this will guide her muscles, reminding them of strength they have forgotten." The alien stared in disbelief. Such simple tools, such primitive devices. Yet the humans spoke as if they were keys to unlock a great treasure. Sarana crossed her arms, her voice low. "And if you fail?" Dr. Elias did not look away. "Then I will still have given her hope," he said. "And hope, my lady, is stronger than gold, stronger than machines, stronger than the fear that binds her." The word struck deep, for Sarana had lived in wealth yet known emptiness. She had ruled with power yet failed to give her daughter what she needed most. Hope now a human dared to offer it. And strangely she found herself trembling, as if standing on the edge of something she could not name. Lyra's small voice broke the silence. "I want to try," she said, her tone weak but determined. The child looked at her mother with pleading eyes. "Please let me try with him." Sarana's lips parted, her heart torn. She feared false hope more than anything, for false hope could break her child's spirit forever. But she could not ignore the fire she saw in Lyra's eyes. It was faint, fragile, but real. She turned slowly to the human, her voice steady but filled with warning. "You carry my daughter's heart in your hands. If you break it, I will break you." Dr. Elias bowed his head, accepting the weight of her words. "I understand," he said simply. Then, for the first time in years, Sarana gave a command not as a ruler, but as a mother desperate for a miracle. "Begin." The human smiled faintly, not in arrogance, but in quiet resolve. And in that moment the promise was sealed. Not of instant miracles, not of false cures, but of a path carved through pain, faith, and the stubborn fire of human will. As the stars burned outside the palace windows, a new chapter had begun. The galaxy would not believe it yet, but the first spark of change had been lit in the heart of an alien child, and the one who lit it was only human. The golden palace that once echoed with laughter of nobles now echoed with something new. The sound of effort, pain, and determination. Dr. Elias began his work with no glowing machines. No thunder of alien science, only his simple tools and his endless patience. At first, the servants watched in disbelief. The human tied cloth bands around Lyra's legs. Gently but firmly, he placed the metal sticks beside her chair, explaining slowly, "These will not carry you, little one. They will only remind your legs what they were made to do." Lyra's hands trembled as she touched them. Her heart raced with both hope and fear. The nobles had always called her weak, broken, a burden, but this human looked at her as if she was a warrior preparing for battle. On the first day, Elias asked her to move her toes, something so small, so simple, yet so difficult. The girl tried, her face tightening, sweat forming on her forehead. Nothing happened. The servants shook their heads, whispering, "It is useless. The child will never walk," but Elias only smiled gently. "Again," he said, and she tried again and again, until her small body shook with exhaustion. By the end of the day, no toe had moved, no miracle had come, yet Elias's calm voice filled the hall. "Well done, Lyra. Tomorrow you will be stronger." The next morning. "The same," the child cried in frustration, her fists striking the silver arms of her chair. "Why can't I do it?" she sobbed. Elias knelt beside her, his voice soft. "Because the hardest battles are not won in a single day," he said. "Your body has forgotten, but together, we will teach it to remember." Lady Sarana watched silently from her throne, her heart torn between pride and fear. She had seen her daughter weep many times, but never before had she seen her weep with determination. Days turned into weeks, the training grew harder. Elias placed her feet on the cold floor, supporting her with the bands. He asked her to push down, to feel the weight of her body. Every attempt ended in trembling failure. Every attempt ended in tears. But each failure was met with the same steady words. Again, the nobles grew restless. They mocked Sarana for keeping the human. "Your palace has become a circus," they sneered. "Your wealth is wasted on a weakling creature." But Sarana silenced them. For though she feared, she could not deny the truth. Her daughter was changing. Lyra's arms grew stronger from gripping the chair. Her spirit grew braver from facing the pain. And one night, when she thought no one was watching, she whispered to herself, "I will walk." But the struggle was not only physical. There were nights of doubt. There were moments when Sarana herself almost ordered Elias to leave. One evening, after seeing her daughter collapse in tears, Sarana confronted him. "You push her too hard," she said sharply. "You bring her pain, and still she cannot stand." Elias met her anger with calm. "My lady, pain is the price of strength," he answered. "Every step forward begins with pain, and every victory begins with tears." His eyes softened. "If you want me to stop, I will stop, but if I stop, then her dream will stop too." Sarana's hands trembled. She wanted to protect her child from every wound, every tear. But when she looked into Lyra's eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Fire. Not the fire of anger, but the fire of a will that refused to break. And so she said nothing and allowed the human to continue. Weeks passed then. One morning, when the suns rose high, something changed. Lyra sat in her chair, her hands gripping the metal sticks tightly, her legs tied with the bands trembling, weak yet alive. Elias knelt beside her, his voice firm. "Push, Lyra, not for me, not for your mother, but for yourself." Her teeth clenched, her body shook, slowly, painfully. One toe twitched, so small, so fragile, yet so powerful. The servants gasped. Some even cried out. Sarana covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Lyra herself froze, then laughed through her tears. I moved it," she whispered. Elias smiled softly. "Yes, little one, and tomorrow you will move more." For the first time, the palace hall did not echo with the laughter of nobles or the weight of despair. It echoed with the sound of hope, small, trembling, fragile hope, but hope strong enough to shake the foundations of doubt. The struggle had begun, and though the path ahead was long and cruel, it was no longer a path of sorrow. It was the path of a warrior, the path of a child who would not give up, the path of a human promise unfolding step by step. The palace had begun to change. Where once there had been silence and sorrow, now there was the sound of training. Every day the human worked with Lyra, pushing her body, guiding her spirit. And though progress was slow, each week brought a small victory. A twitch of the toes, a lift of the knee, a longer moment standing with support. But change did not please everyone. Whispers spread through the noble courts like dark smoke. "Have you heard?" One lord sneered. "The great Lady Sarana hides a human in her palace." Another laughed cruelly. "She lets a fragile creature from a forgotten world play with her daughter as if she were a toy." The rumors grew sharper. Some claimed Sarana had gone mad from grief. Others whispered that the human used forbidden methods, primitive and dangerous, and in the shadows. Her rival saw an opportunity one evening. As the twin suns sank below the horizon, an alien lord named Vanar was invited to the palace for counsel. He was tall, proud, his skin marked with golden lines of rank. He bowed before Sarana with the elegance of a serpent. "My lady," he began softly, "I come not as a rival, but as a friend, one who worries for your name." Sarana narrowed her eyes. "Speak," she said, her tone sharp. Vanar leaned closer, his voice low. "You trust a human with your daughter's life." His words dripped with poison. "Do you not know their history? Humans are reckless, desperate, willing to risk pain and death for the smallest chance of victory." He shook his head slowly. "This one promises miracles, but his ways may destroy her body forever." Sarana's heart tightened. The warning struck at her deepest fear. Every night she had asked herself if she was wrong to let this stranger push her child through suffering. Every night she feared her daughter's tears were signs of harm, not healing. She tried to silence her doubt, but Vanar's words clung to her like chains. "Imagine," he whispered, "if she fails, if she falls, and never rises again. Will the galaxy not laugh? Will they not say Lady Sarana destroyed her own child in her madness to trust a weak human?" Sarana dismissed him with cold words. But long after he left, his whispers remained. That night, she stood outside the training chamber, watching as Elias guided her daughter's trembling legs. Lyra was crying, her face twisted with pain as she tried to push herself upright. Serana's hands clenched, her heart screaming. What if this was cruelty, not healing? When Elias ended the session, Serana stepped forward, her voice hard as stone. Human, she said sharply, tell me the truth. Are you helping her, or are you breaking her? The chamber fell silent, the servants froze, their eyes darting between their lady and the human. Elias looked up slowly, his expression calm, though his eyes carried the weight of long battles. My lady, he said quietly, if you wish me gone, I will leave. But hear me first. He gestured toward the child who sat panting, her face wet with tears but glowing with determination. Look at her, Elias said firmly. She is not broken, she is fighting. Harder than anyone in this palace has ever fought. Serana's voice cracked with anger, with fear. She suffers every day. Elias nodded, his tone sharp but steady. Yes, she suffers. Because the path to strength is carved with pain. If you shield her from it, you will take away her chance to stand. You may protect her from tears, but you will also chain her forever to that chair. His words cut deep. Serana's hands trembled, her pride battled her fear. She turned to her daughter, desperate for an answer. Lyra, do you want this? Do you want to continue? The girl, weak from training, looked up at her mother. Her voice was small but unshaken. Yes, she whispered. I want to walk. Even if it hurts. Serana's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. For in that moment she saw the truth. Her daughter was no longer the child of sorrow. She was a warrior, carrying a will that even her mother did not have. Elias bowed his head slightly. I do not ask for blind trust, my lady. I ask only that you let her fight her battle. Serana closed her eyes, her mind torn between fear and faith. The memory of Vaynar's warning still echoed in her ears. But louder now was the sound of her daughter's fragile yet unbroken voice. I want to walk. Finally, Serana turned away, her words heavy but resolved. Then continue, she said quietly. But inside her heart was not calm. Doubt still lived there, dark and whispering. And in the shadows of the galaxy her rivals waited, ready to turn that doubt into betrayal. The palace had grown used to the sound of struggle. Each morning the servants heard Lyra's soft cries, the thump of her falls and the patient voice of the human guiding her. For weeks the pattern never changed. Pain, tears, small progress, but then, on a day when no one expected it, something greater happened. The chamber was lit by the glow of twin suns streaming through tall crystal windows. Lyra stood between two metal rails that Elias had built. Her arms shook as she held them, her legs trembling beneath the cloth bands. Sweat rolled down her forehead, her breath came in gasps. Dr. Elias knelt beside her, his voice calm and firm. Today, little one, you will try to step. The servants whispered nervously from the edges of the hall. Some shook their heads, believing it impossible. Others leaned forward, unable to look away. Lady Serana sat on her throne, her hands tight on the armrests, her heart beating like thunder. Lyra's small foot pressed against the floor. Her leg wavered, weak and unsteady, for a moment. It seemed she would collapse as always. But Elias's voice guided her. Do not fear the ground. Let it carry you, push against it, believe in it. Her teeth clenched, her fingers dug into the rails. Slowly, painfully, her foot lifted. The palace seemed to freeze, every breath held in suspense. And then, her foot moved forward and touched the floor again. The hall erupted in gasps. A single step, small and shaking but real. Serana's eyes widened, tears spilling despite her pride. The girl herself stared in shock at her own leg, whispering, I did it. Elias smiled softly, his voice steady. Yes, Lyra, you did. Now again. The child pushed once more, her whole body trembling. Her second foot dragged forward, another step. This time she stumbled, her arms almost giving way. But Elias caught her gently, steadying her without carrying her. You are not falling, he said. You are learning to rise. The servants covered their mouths, some weeping openly. Even the guards, hardened by war and duty, looked away to hide the emotion in their eyes. For in that moment, they witnessed something alien science had failed to give. The sight of a child once bound to her chair taking her first fragile steps. Serana stood slowly, unable to remain seated. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Lyra. Her daughter's name trembled in the air like a prayer. For years she had dreamed of this sight. Now, before her eyes, it was real. But the miracle was not without danger. After her third step, Lyra's legs buckled. She collapsed forward, the band straining, the rails shaking. A cry filled the chamber, part pain, part fear. Serana rushed forward, her hands reaching out, but Elias raised his voice firmly, stopping her. "Do not take this from her, my lady. Let her try again." Serana froze, torn between a mother's instinct and the human's command. Her heart screamed to protect her child, but her eyes saw the truth. Lyra was not broken by the fall. She was already pushing herself up. Her small hands gripped the rails, her knees trembling, her face wet with tears, yet her voice was steady. "I will stand." The hall fell silent again as the child pulled herself upright. Her body swayed like a fragile tree in the wind. But she stood, on her own legs she stood. A silence deeper than space filled the chamber. Then slowly, step by step, she walked forward. 4 steps, 5, then 6, each one shaking, each one uncertain, but each one real. Serana covered her mouth, her tears flowing freely. The woman who had ruled fleets, who had commanded worlds, now trembled like a child. Her daughter was walking toward her, a sight no wealth, no crown, no power had ever bought. The nobles who had mocked Serana heard the news that very day. Some laughed in disbelief, others demanded proof. But those who had seen it with their own eyes could not deny the truth. A human had done what the galaxy could not. That evening, when the chamber grew quiet, Elias sat beside Lyra as she rested. "You did more than walk today," he told her gently. "You proved to everyone that nothing is impossible if you fight for it." The girl smiled through her exhaustion. "I will walk again tomorrow," she whispered, her voice filled with determination. Elias nodded, his eyes calm but proud. "Yes, little one, tomorrow and the day after." "Until you run," Serana stepped forward, her heart heavy with gratitude and disbelief. She wanted to speak, but no words seemed enough. Finally, she whispered the truth. "Human, I did not believe, but you have given me back my daughter." Elias shook his head, his eyes meeting hers. "No, my lady, she gave herself back. I only showed her how to fight." And as night fell over the Golden Palace, one thing was certain. The galaxy had witnessed the beginning of a miracle, and it was not born from alien power but from human spirit. The palace no longer felt the same, its golden halls, once heavy with silence and sorrow, now carried the sound of footsteps. Small, uneven, trembling footsteps, but footsteps nonetheless. The sound echoed like music through the chambers, and each echo was a victory against despair. Lyra trained every day under Dr. Elias. Her legs still shook, her body still stumbled, but she no longer feared the floor. Each fall was followed by her rising again. Each step carried her farther than the day before, and with every new step, the servants, the guards, even the nobles who had mocked her now watched in awe. Lady Serana walked behind her daughter one morning. The great hall stretched wide, sunlight pouring through tall windows, and in the center of it her child walked. Slow, careful, but proud. The mother's heart trembled with joy. She had dreamed of this sound for years. Now it was real. The news spread across the Orion sector. Whispers turned to shouts, disbelief turned to shock. "The human healed her," some cried. "No, impossible," others argued. Yet proof could not be denied. The once disabled child of Lady Serana now walked before all. Nobles who had mocked her bowed their heads in shame. Some came to offer false words of praise. Others tried to twist the story into their favor. But none could erase the truth. A single human, with no machines, no wealth, no magic, had achieved the impossible. One evening, a great feast was called. Alien lords and ladies from across the stars gathered in Serana's hall. They expected a display of wealth, jewels, and power, but instead, they witnessed something far greater. The child, dressed in simple robes, walked slowly across the floor. Each step shaking, each step fragile, yet each step silenced the galaxy's laughter. The nobles watched in stunned silence. Some trembled, others lowered their heads, for they knew what they were seeing was more than a child walking. It was the fall of arrogance. It was the rise of something they could not understand. Human will. Lady Serana's voice rang through the hall. "For years your doctors failed me," she declared. "For years you mocked me and called my child broken." Her eyes burned with pride. "But a human, a being you call weak, has done what you could not. Remember this. Strength is not always found in power or wealth. Sometimes it is found in the smallest heart that refuses to give up." Tears burned her eyes as she turned to her daughter. Lyra took another step forward, then another, And then, to the shock of all, she released the support she held and walked 3 steps alone. The hall erupted in gasps. Some nobles even fell to their knees. For in that fragile moment, they saw a truth greater than their science. They saw the spirit of humanity. Sarana could not hold back her tears. She, the proud mother who had never let her people see her weakness, wept openly, not tears of sorrow, but tears of wonder. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees, arms open, and her daughter walked into them. Not carried, not dragged, but walked. The hall grew silent once more. Even the air seemed to pause as Sarana whispered, "My child, my light, you have given me back my heart." Dr. Elias stood at a distance, watching quietly. He did not boast, did not smile with arrogance. He simply nodded, as if this was always meant to be. But Sarana rose, holding her daughter close, and turned her gaze to him. Her voice broke with emotion. "You have done the impossible, human. You gave her life when all others gave her despair." Elias shook his head softly. "No, my lady, she gave herself life. I only showed her the path." Those words struck deep, for Sarana understood then that this human's gift was not only healing, it was belief. The belief that even the weakest body could rise if the spirit refused to break. The nobles bowed their heads humbled, and though many would never admit it aloud, they knew the truth. Humans were not weak. They were dangerous in a way no weapon or empire could match. They carried a will that could bend the impossible into reality. As the feast ended, Sarana stood beside Elias, her voice quiet but filled with respect. "The galaxy laughs at humans, calls you fragile, ordinary, forgettable." She looked at her daughter, walking slowly beside them. "But I have seen what you truly are. If one human can do this, then I fear what humanity may yet become." Elias said nothing, only looked at the stars beyond the palace windows. His silence was louder than any words, for he knew what Sarana now knew. This was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of something far greater. And as the child's footsteps echoed through the golden hall, Lady Sarana, the proud mother who once carried only sorrow, wept again, but this time her tears were not hidden. They were tears of wonder, tears of fear, tears shed in honor of the human spirit. The spirit that had given her daughter back her life. The spirit that would one day change the galaxy,